Any public input regarding proposed amendment to JICJAR, imaging devices procedure? Seeing none, we'll move on. May I have a motion to accept the minutes of February 1st, please?
So moved.
We have a second?
Second.
Any additions, corrections, or omissions?
I did have one suggestion of a change.
Okay.
Okay. So it was under section 2, the public input section, where Mr. Tucker approached the board. And I would like to change the wording to what he said, Lance Tucker inquired on the progress, if any, regarding the concerns he expressed in December around the inconsistencies at Little Leopard's daycare. And I'd like to strike around the inconsistencies of Little Leopard's daycare and replace it with about the differences in tuition among district staff for the Little Leopards Learning Center.
Okay, any others?
No.
Okay, we'll hear a motion from Barbara to accept the minutes as amended.
Yes.
Second from Ellen. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Do I hear a motion to accept the deliberative session minutes? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a correction. Does anyone else have any? On page 3, it says Board Chairman Ann Wiggett. That should be Board Member Millie Nelson continued to present Article 5. Motion made by Millie Nelson, strike the chairman, and seconded by Board Vice Chairman Barbara Astone. And the next paragraph should say, Board Vice Chair Barbara Astone explained that this article. And that's the only correction I have. Do you have any, Barbara? Do you have any corrections on that?
I don't.
Okay. So who moved that?
I think I did.
So, move it.
I'll make a motion to
Yeah.
amend as stated.
Okay, who seconded that?
Second.
All in favor as amended?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, next on the agenda is manifest is still going around. We have a treasurer's report for.
We do. For the month of January, we had receipts of $2,072,000, including the third of 4 payments for adequacy aid and $919,000 worth of tax revenue from the town. We had cleared disbursements of $1,031,000, so our ending balance at the end of January in all accounts was $2,152,172.08. The treasurer has reviewed and signed off on this report.
Okay, any questions for Tom?
The financial summary for January was distributed late Friday. There's still an awful lot of, shall I say, soft numbers in there. Some of the assumptions include 85% of the unencumbered expenses in supplies and maintenance and things like that are assumed to be expended between now and the end of the year. Of course, that will be reviewed each month going forward and see where we stand and what sort of commitments we can get in terms of spending. Some of the revenue numbers are not solid yet at this point. And again, we just continue to review those and move along with them. I included an analysis of our liability and health, dental, unemployment, workers' comp insurances. With January, we received the unemployment invoice for the year, which was $12,490 less than what was in the budget. So with the budget move that you authorized a couple of months ago for health insurance, and the unemployment insurance invoice received in January, it looks like the net of all insurances in the general fund will be just under $5,000 under budget in total. Questions?
Can you say that one more time? So I understand about the move we made.
To cover the health insurance.
Right. So tell me about what was it, the unemployment insurance?
Unemployment, because again, we have very good experience. We typically budget about 0.75% of wages up to $140 per employee. And because of good experience, and the pool also had good experience, so the reserves were refunded, as we've done with the health insurance. Because it's employer only, it comes back to us as a premium holiday. So we recognized $10,000, I believe it was, as revenue during the month, and booked all the total expenses as they were. But even at that, when I take all the insurances, the property liability, health insurance, dental, life, unemployment insurance, and workers' compensation insurance, it's $4,923 favorable to budget in the general fund.
Okay. Thank you. I have a question about page 3 of the financial summary under federal sources. And I know these numbers are not all solid, but I think we got some new information plugged in. And I'm looking at federal sources, other Medicaid, where our anticipated revenue is quite a bit less. Is that going to be solid, or is that
That's still an estimate.
just an estimate?
I'm
Okay.
not seeing an awful lot of activity on a year-to-date basis. Certainly, last year we had a lot.
Yeah,
We well exceeded the budget last year.
right.
This-
But now we're not.
Not so much. So that's another one of those, and as I get another month worth of history, we'll have better information for you. But I'd rather call it short at this point and have you expect to receive it.
Okay.
Other questions? Thank you.
I just need to go back to the policy, imaging procedure. We need a motion on that to finalize the adoption.
Make a motion that we adopt policy JICJA-R, imaging device and procedures.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Let's see, unfinished business. Barbara, do you have?
Yes, an update on the superintendent search. It seems that we're winding down now and coming to a close. We've had a total of 41 applicants. We have interviewed at least 9 different people. And the committee is about to make its final report to the board. So there will be some news, I think, shortly. And this process will finally be coming to a conclusion. It was a very good process, I think.
Okay, thank you very much. David, do you have anything on principal search?
Principal search, the committee's being formed. We have a meeting with Bill Bryan scheduled for the 29th, an organizational meeting on the 29th of February.
This week, we'll have
What wasn't on the agenda?
to. All right. Joanne, thank you.
I included an extra packet or updated packet of what I sent you because the packet had gone to Kathy to be included with your mailing, and there was some information that came about as faculty meeting that I thought you should be aware of. So to start with the enrollment, we do have 336 people, so we're pretty steady there. Just call your attention to the second page about the pathways, the career pathways and options. Major changes in the advisory time and how that's going to be spent with students. The curriculum enhancement for advisory time, there's a discussion with our advisory council for 9th grade students to use the book Teenagers Preparing for the Real World by Chad Foster that has a very great and enhanced curriculum about making contacts, collecting business cards and why, and you know, how to shake hands with people, and really it's a I didn't bring the book with me, but it's a fairly easy read, but it's very thought-provoking. When I was teaching Introduction to Business, I used it in my curriculum, and we felt that the freshmen really needed. They do good work in the advisory meetings, but we needed some curriculum enhancement, and that's the way we're going. We have money to buy that, so we're going to provide all freshmen advisors with the curriculum and go with that. The 10th grade really deals with, Connie's been working with Woodsville Guarantee Savings Bank and providing them with some financial literacy. But again, it needed, we used Chad Foster's book on financial literacy, which is, it's already pre-made, it's well done about buying cars, buying houses, and you know, these are the kinds of things that we really want to get into more discussion with them in the advisory to make it a little bit more academic. And we think that kids will really buy into that a little bit more as a reason to be there. We are still working on the juniors and seniors, but we are talking about the college application process, interviewing techniques, test prep, and other things that are going to come up. We're going to meet again this week to talk a little bit more about that, but that's where we are with that. We really think that will really enhance and complement the learning process that's going on in the classroom. With Chad Foster, that is currently being taught in another area in career and occupations, but I think we'll be able to reach more students with that. So we have the money through grants and so forth to do that.
Can you remind me how the frequency of advisory and the length of time?
It's about 26 minutes or so long. It meets every day. And so you know, it needs a little bit of overhauling and a little bit more push and oomph towards the academic part, and that way everybody's getting that, and this takes a little bit of time to go through, so that's why we thought it would be better, a little bit better buy-in from staff and students. So during the third quarter, this came to me also with our advisory council. We had a student that came to us from another a student, Justin Dauphine, and had a very positive experience transitioning to Littleton. And we have students with earned time. Those are kids that can pass in the hallway without a pass, and because they haven't had any, they haven't been coming to late, they don't have any discipline referrals, those kinds of things. And we thought, because we currently have the green passes that we give kids, we thought, why can't we just use the student IDs? So they still have to ask permission to leave the room and everything, but it gives them a little bit of more ownership for juniors and seniors, and we are kind of preparing them to make adult-like decisions. So it's kind of a more of a push towards some sort of hallway privileges and students. So we're going to do that on a trial basis for a couple of weeks so we can have students and staff weigh in and administration, see how it works. But it came from a student. I think that's important to recognize him and to tell you that that's where that came from. So they do have a voice. Parent and school connection. Kristen Roberts had a coordinated biometric day on January 29th. She had reports that 100% involvement. We had staff involved in that. We had people in town, and we had to actually turn people away because we couldn't fit them all in. So we'll have to kind of rethink that, but it was pretty successful. We had a cafe murder mystery that Deb Steinauer does a little cafe theater, and we served over 80 guests. And Cecile Healy's French 3 class was responsible for the nice dessert we had. And we had an honors assembly on February 4th. We recognized 40% of our student body, or 141 students, and about 13 students with effort awards. So that's a growth out of first quarter. So that was pretty successful. Penguin Plunge, February 6th. There were 37 high schools represented in doing that. High schools raised $165,000. Money's being donated to Special Olympics and unified sports. So anybody that has or wants to have a unified sports team and needs some help with that, that's where some of that money's coming from. We raised over $3,000, and we had 18 students go. So semi-formal was just Saturday. It was really cold out, but we had a great group of kids, and it went really well. And we're in the process of Winter Carnival, so a half day on Thursday and full day on Friday. Again, PSATs, you'll notice in your packet there was a letter from guidance that Joe sent out that went out to parents and also how to read them, so I wanted to include that in the packet. And also, the SAT testing will be happening on March 2nd. So the update in your packet also shows exactly how guidance has set up the SATs and who the proctors are and when it's going to occur. So there's some coordination and thought process that went into this and where everybody is. It's going to be held during the day, not during the Saturday, because they found that students might take it a little bit more seriously if it's done during the day. We've got breaks in between that we're going to do that. We're going to close down the history wing and the English wing, and that's where our students will be taking their SATs. So, wanted to show you the planning that went into that. Career fair is planned for March 10th. That's headed by Connie Ward. Student showcase is March 14th, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get nearer that. Just also note that March 15th is the North Country Music Festival, which we are hosting. So there'll be about 500 or 600 people in the building. We do have a replacement for Mrs. Jobert as well. She's on maternity leave till about March 18th, and that's Emily Strauss. So we're lucky to have her. She's an outside contractor, and she is fitting in very nicely with seeing students. And I have spoken with the Alumni Association, and we have a meeting scheduled for March 7th, although I kind of think that that's one of our playoff game nights, so I'm going to be in touch with Daryl Lewis again, see if I make sure I don't have a conflict there, but we'll meet with a group of alumni so we can begin choosing alumni members that we would like to honor during the academic awards like we did last year, except there'll be a little bit more criteria with input from the alumni. The idea is to have someplace, I'm not sure where yet, frames with their class of, their names, where they work, and these are people that have made significant contributions to Littleton High School and who work in the area and who continue to support our students either academically or in any portion. I saw that in the school that I visited in Chicago. It's kind of impressive to walk in and see those all framed. So we're working with George, our local photographer, and Photo Factory to have all that done. So a lot of it's done in town, and the alumni were really happy that Daryl is by default and tells me the president of the Alumni Association, but he's helping me to get that group together so we can get that going. Big thing on Rachel Angelides did do an informational meeting. They are interested in doing an international trip. I have France as a question mark because I know that's kind of like controversial. I just wanted to tell you it came up in conversation, not that she's thinking about going there, but that those are the places they have discussed. It's still in conversational mode. It's kind of seeing where people might want to have an interest so that we can begin, because that takes a year or so out to plan. So I just wanted to share that with you. Driver's ed, a lot of people have come and said, how come Littleton High School doesn't do driver's ed? The reason is because I can't find someone who's certified. It takes now, there's tie-up with the state to get people certified in that area. You've got to have money up front, and you've got to have the software, you've got to have the hardware, but we do have Terry Larkham of White Mountains Regional and some other places where students can go. So I do have information where kids can go to take driver's ed if that's what they want to be doing. So, but we just don't have someone in the building doing it.
What's the history on that? We haven't had that for a while. I guess
I was sitting here, the wheels attorney.
Does anybody know?
I'm trying to recall. Yeah. People can help.
The state was subsidizing it, $150, and stopped that 4 years ago, thereabouts. And that's when we stopped the program. We had an outside vendor who was responsible for collecting the balance from the parents. And when the funds were received from the state, they were transferred to the vendor. They discontinued the program.
What was that, Molly?
I think we decided to send it to contracted services through a budget concern a long time ago.
Okay.
Right, Ann? Help me. You're the archivist.
No, years ago, many years ago, it used to be offered by a faculty member.
Right.
And then we went to a contracted service. And then a few years ago, there were a lot of opportunities for driver's ed in the area. So it was a little bit of a price war, if you will, on costs. So companies were outbidding others. So the person we had worked with as a contracted service really didn't have many students signing up. So they went elsewhere. And a vendor in town is no longer doing business. So this is where we are right now.
But really, the school isn't involved in it at this point? Okay, so.
I mean, I have the information for the students to contact the person, so it's up to them to really,
Yeah.
do all that. It's not, we're not involved in it, but
Okay.
but people
I
have
just
come
want-
in saying, how come, we have such a, how come Littleton doesn't have someone? Well, that's part of the reason, is because they've gone elsewhere, or they're servicing other places, and you cannot get someone, it's a certification issue and the cost. And there's only so many people that are certified in the area. So we're doing the best that we can, but we just don't offer it.
Right, that's what I thought, the school didn't offer it, so that's.
But you may hear that in conversation, which is why I wanted to bring it up tonight.
Okay.
And then Stephanie Potter did offer to facilitate the Stop the Genocide presentation by Tom White from the Cohen Center in Keene State. Though that was done with parent permission, very well received by kids to kind of really understand about hatred and tolerance and that sort of thing. And very tough subject, but again, she wanted to, we have a lot of students reading about that. They read about that in English, they read about it in history, so we wanted to have someone here to come talk to the kids. So, we have a technology committee that extends the K-6 work. Dana's the chair of that, so we've begun to work on that and looking at the one-to-one initiative that we might look at with the middle school and so forth. We're not that far off, really. And so that's the long and short of things. Sorry to take a lot of time, but I did want to include, especially the SAT prep part. That guidance has really done a really good job with really prepping and making sure everybody is aware of what's going on and where teachers are going to be, because we have, as I said, we're closing both those wings off, so there's a little bit of coordination. So.
Good evening. So once again, that report, you do see my goals. We've been spending quite a bit of time really working on our assessment practices. Our teachers working on the assessment of competencies. Enrollment, hopefully you have it, but it's pretty much remained the same. We may be actually receiving an additional student from Linwood. Actually, phone call today. Our CTC and industry post-secondary connections. And I don't have the date yet, otherwise I would let you know, but we are planning a ribbon cutting ceremony with members of the Littleton Industrial Park, NCIC, and members of New Hampshire Economic Development. Will be here finally to officially open the program in terms of our CNC machines. And as you heard last time, we continue to work on an agreement actually with 2 community colleges, because White Mountain Community College really wants to be involved, and because they see a future in offering programs around machine and manufacturing once again. They used to have programs. The Lakes Region Community College is very active, so I'm meeting with them to initiate a Running Start credit for our program here. And part of that, we are going to visit Lakes Region Community College and their program with our students. So that's in the works down the road. Once again, our 9th and 10th grade girls, whoever wants to participate, we're presently registering girls for Girls in Technology Day. It's going to be held in March, as last year, at NHTI. So we're hoping to have 25 girls attend that. I did hand out permission slips to every one of them, so if anybody's watching, please get those permission slips in. As you heard me say in the past, that our program competencies are always being reviewed, and they're reviewed with teachers, members of industry, and members of secondary ed. And our instructor, even though he's only been here a couple of years, he really played a critical role in a revision of our competencies. We attended that meeting a week ago. And we're still working on an articulation agreement with the University of Maine at Fort Kent for nursing. And it's not on here, but I did meet with area principals there, all guidance counselors. We did meet here to discuss programs for the upcoming year and recruitment strategies such as visiting, students coming here, and that type of thing. So we did have that meeting a couple weeks ago. So all that's in the works. We'll be beginning after vacation, going out to schools and talking to students, for other district students. As you heard me say earlier, working with SREB on our competency assessments, and that will continue March 18th. You do have a list of what we've been doing out of the ordinary in terms of all of the programs, obviously following our curriculum, our competencies, but just a few quick highlights. The automotive, as you know, have been quite involved with the Mount Eustis project and bringing people in to assist with that as well. I think the only thing they're lacking now is a little snow. I think this week they are scheduled to install the actual tow rope. They're all ready to roll, so maybe after tomorrow it doesn't rain. Broadcast, we've been working on promotion and recruitment videos. So thank you for passing that bylaw today, so we can move ahead on that. Construction, it's not listed here because we just attended last Friday, but we did go to Robobeck, which of course is an industrial park, and the gentleman's name is Ryan Ahern, who's a supervisor, who actually works for Bread Loaf. He's able to provide our students with a fantastic tour. So we're going to go back in March, just before they open up. It's quite an impressive expansion up there. So. And health science, you see there, with students finishing their CPR. And also last Wednesday, I just want to thank members from the hospital. They volunteered their time to help with our students do mock LMA exams. It's a practice as they're going to take their exam the first week in March. So actually it was quite impressive because, you know, these students are quite busy. But students from all over the region took the time to come in and practice last Wednesday. And you've heard about our technology downstairs in manufacturing with a week-long training session. Bob Place was here from Haas, and we did offer that to area industry members, and we had a few people attend, so that was very popular. And for the first time, we were able to have an intern at Burndy, and so Jared Nelson is actually was able to break that barrier and is doing interning at Burndy, so we're pleased about that. And mentioned the fair coming up, so that's all he mentioned. So looking forward to that. Any questions? No. Thank you. Thank you.
So we'll start with our Power School statistics, the 30-day window there. And then you have your last column, which shows the year progress. And then I did note that we did have one more parent sign up on the middle school end, so that increased by 1. So you have the numbers for that. Friday, I was in attendance for the CES, and it's good information that Al was talking about the Robotech trip, because the North Country tech coordinators want to do that as well, so I will coordinate with you for that, but we want to go on a tour as well of Robotech, so that was discussed at the meeting. We also had a vendor from HP, a representative, give us a presentation of all the latest devices that are kind of out on the market, price points and competitive pricing, and of course he got to take the trip all the way from Boston for a 9 o'clock meeting, so it shows he's looking for sales at this point, so, but we listened to him, and he had a pretty decent presentation, and then we also talked about our consortium proposals for networking, and we're still kind of putting request for proposal together for that, and again, it won't be for next year, it would probably be something for the 2017-18 school year, but we're still trying to get our grasp on that. Safety and security, we had another baseline test of OPSYNC last week, so we'll have an update on that when we go into our district safety meeting, but for the most part, we found that there's some quirks maybe if you run multiple tests in the day. Sometimes if they don't close out of their initial test, because we had one in the morning, and so if they don't close that out, if it gets triggered in the afternoon, then you might not be able to see that alert. So there's some quirks still, but we're making that list and getting them ironed out. So that way it's hopefully foolproof at that point. Technology integration, you'll probably hear from Rick's report about the opportunities at Lakeway. Kind of stepping through the process with the hardware cycle. We took advantage of an opportunity just because of the sales clearance near the end of the year. So because of the success of the pilot programs in 6th grade, we've been able to put another order of equipment together. So that's in the works. So it hasn't been shipped out for some reason, even though we ordered it back at the end of the January. But we're still waiting for those to show up and hopefully keep progressing with the Lakeway model for another grade level. Still some conversations that have to take place for that, but that's where we're moving forward to finish the end of the year. And then again, Dana's been working getting the 7 through 12 campus kind of what we have and moving forward with that. And then I gave you another attachment of the inventory. So I tried to give you an inventory summary. So it shows that for 2 technicians in the district, we are pretty much responsible almost over 1,400 devices in the operating, of the plant. Everything from devices to backbone to infrastructure to systems, the whole works. And then you can see from high to low what those devices are. Unfortunately, on the left, that was a random order of how they were all put in, but it's just the way they got listed out. But and then what I did was I gave you a breakdown of how that looks like between all the buildings for a particular device, and then I gave you the site-specific breakdown of what those devices are, about the age for each category, and then some other classifications if they're under repair or how they represent the inventory. So that was pretty much the document for that. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you.
Madam, I have one question. As we're rolling this out, more, and this applies to Lakeway too, and I know as classes are using, a full class is sometimes on the computer. How do staff make sure people are doing what they're supposed to be doing on the computer?
So there's a couple ways to do that, and it's, I think Rick will be able to talk about it when he gets to the 6th graders, but some teachers are interactive, so they're physically going around the room and, going from machine to machine, and just, some teachers, they don't stand in one spot. They're moving around the classroom.
So they get proximity, they go around, they see what's on the screen.
Right.
Yeah.
Then we'll probably be putting tools like you've heard of Apple TV and probably the Google Chromecasters, things like that. Those will eventually get integrated with the Promethean boards or whatever smart board we have at the time moving forward. And what that allows you to do as an instructor is to take students' work and have them connect in. So now you're getting this conversation with students, and then the students pretty much teaching the lesson at that point because they're showing, what they can do. And then you also have the hands-on stuff. If they're not doing it on a computer, they're doing it up at the board, like math classes, things like that. And then we have systems called a Go Guardian system, which we haven't really pushed that out to teachers yet, but we have it for us on the security end. And that would allow teachers to see, so when they give a task to students and it's their assignment or their assessment or whatever, they can actually go in this portal and see what the students are working on at that time. So they get a real-time view of what all their students are doing. And if it's, goofing around on YouTube or
So they'll
doing
be able
Google
to see that,
searches.
you're saying?
Right, so they can
Yeah,
say,
that's
hey,
good.
what's going on, get back on that, and,
Yeah.
they can do things. So there's a couple ways, if
Mhm.
they're in desk mode, they have the tools on their computer, and if not, they're interacting with the students, so,
Okay, thanks.
yeah. That's it.
Adam,
Okay.
So you also have a history of that. You have a history.
Oh,
of
yeah,
that.
through the filters and the logging mechanisms, right. So if we have to generate reports after, like that helps some teachers if you get.
Well, I just know kids are not probably given a computer,
Right.
some of them are not going to do what they're supposed to do.
Right.
So I just wanted
But
to
after
see.
the fact, if they say,
Right,
why is my
so-
son having poor participation grades? And they'll say, we can, get the report that says,
Right,
oh,
well,
well.
I mean, I hope that they're not watching YouTube for 15 minutes out of their
Right.
40-minute
Right.
period
Is that
if they're
something-
using the computer. So I just wanted to ask about that
Is
because,
that something that can be blocked to the students, YouTube? or-
Oh, yeah. We talked
So
about
that we
that.
can get it on
Right,
in practice?
right. So
Well,
it's used in different ways. Like
Sometimes
certain
it's-
teachers will actually incorporate videos with their classes, like wide in the social studies areas, things like that, science. So they have the videos to reference and things like that. And then we have subscriptions to like Discovery Online. And in fact, the vendors that we're looking at, in fact, one thing I forgot to mention is our E-rate proposals are out right now, posted for RFP. So one company, there's companies out there that have advantages now because they have local data centers in the state of New Hampshire, and they've made these partnerships with Google is the main one, and so that way, if we had signed a contract with that company, then you're not leaving the state of New Hampshire to really go into the internet to use these services. Like the furthest you're going is Manchester, and you're hitting a data center that houses like Google, YouTube, Netflix, Amazon, all these video streaming content areas. So that's some things that have been proposed at the NCES level. And you're not going, say to Europe or you're using the actual internet. You're staying locally from these services that you're paying for. So those are some of the other discussions as well. So, but yeah. Okay.
thank you.
Sure.
Leslie, that question came up at our technology meeting too.
Okay, well,
And Matt Champagne, who's one of the technology specialists, actually is going to install or activate the ability for the teachers to actually have it to monitor the students' screens live. And so they can all see that. So that makes it easy. In terms of what our teachers are doing, our teachers identify the instructional standards and technology in their lesson plans now. And we input those into the Planbook EDU software that we use, and we've asked them to actually identify the standards that they're addressing, so at the end of the year we'll have a good record of how far we've actually gotten. All right, I'll start by beginning. The enrollment is on the spreadsheet that you can see. We're up to 390 students compared to 377 at the beginning of the year. And you can also see along the bottom two rows that since school started in August, 32 students have entered Lakeway and 14 have left. So again, we have probably more than a 10% turnover in students that start the year versus finish the year. Our goals are there, as they always are. Under curriculum and staff development, we will be finishing our winter NEWA testing on the 19th, so that's actually as of this Friday. In terms of technology, as Adam said, Chromebooks have been ordered for the 5th grade students, and those are expected to arrive very shortly. We're also providing 18 hours of staff development training. The teachers really be working with each other for both 5th and 6th grade teachers so that they can actually plan and assist each other in learning some of the new things that they're dealing with. Just the Chromebook system in Google Chrome is something for most of the staff that's actually new and so they do need some education on that.
How does that work, the training?
The 18
Does
hours?
somebody come? to
They're
the-
doing it, Amy Kopp, who's our librarian, and then the teachers themselves are training each other. We sent all the 6th grade teachers actually down to the Krista McAuliffe conference in December, and they took an all-day workshop actually on using Google Chrome, and now they're meeting with each other after school, after, in 2-hour increments to actually plan out what they're doing as well as share that with each other. And it was just that providing that additional training as well as collaborative time was really essential to make this work. So we were able to find the funds for the superintendent to make that happen. It's certainly a good thing. Last Wednesday we had a presentation to all of our staff on Project Lead the Way, and the next step after this presentation, Project Lead the Way would be is a series of instructional activities for addressing science standards. And so our instructional committee will assess to see if there is some student or teacher interest rather in utilizing this program, and then if there is, we'll proceed on it. So that just happened. And lastly, under curriculum staff development, we still have 2 more sessions in our winter program. There were no Lakeway students on the tram. You weren't out there, Leslie. Facilities. We shared with the Safety District Facilities Committee several safety improvements that have been made or are being made in the process. They're fairly sensitive, so I wouldn't describe them here, but those have been implemented. I certainly have to compliment Terry Jackson for discovering these things and actually implementing them. Also, you may have noticed in the news probably since Christmas, there's been an increase in bomb threats at schools, primarily high schools, but as a response to that and being shared, having that information shared by Paul Smith, we actually had a bomb threat drill at Lakeway about 2 weeks ago. It went extremely smoothly, and essentially what we do is we first go into a secure campus, and then we announce to the staff that they need to observe what we call scan protocols, which is a way for them to look for unusual packages. And then from that secure campus mode, we actually then do an internal evacuation to the gym. Before bringing all the students into the gym, we make sure that the gym is safe. And then we bring all the students into the gym, and we ran the whole drill and had teachers and students back in their classrooms within 12 minutes, excuse me, and the police department observed it. And, it was probably the most orderly, quiet drill I've ever seen our school run.
Just to clarify, Rick, you said bomb threats schools in general, not...
Yes, yeah, all over the country.
Right.
There have been a series of robocalls, and in anticipation of that, we wanted to make sure we knew how to handle that, and went very smoothly. In terms of personnel, we still have one vacancy for a paraprofessional that's posted right now on SchoolString. We're in the process of assessing the applicants. Schools, parents, community events. On the 27th of January, I think actually the high school did this as well. The Isaac Joseph Band performed for our students, and their focus is really on an anti-bullying, pro-kindness message. It was very well received. We are currently celebrating Random Act of Kindness Week, and there's a description of that in the packets that I gave to you. So each day we have a different theme as well as a special message to the students, and it's gone very well. And then last week we had our PBIS monthly rollout, which focuses on playground behavior, and the 6th grade leadership team actually acted out a series of skits about what's appropriate, what's inappropriate behavior, especially during the winter months for playground. So it actually covers what you should wear as well as how to slide down the hill and a variety of things. So they've been very effective. Mrs. Bromley's done a very nice job with the leadership group, just re-emphasizing these points. And then we recognize kids that are observing these at the end of the month, and then they get special recognition. So it's worked out. Any questions?
Thank you.
Okay.
So looking at enrollment, we're actually at 121 students. We had 2 students move on last Friday, so, but that's temporary because we have, I think, 16 students, not all initial referrals, but several of them initial referrals that are going through evaluations right now. So that changes by the day, as you know. Currently, all of our staffing positions are filled. Then some updates of a couple topics that fall under the student services. ESOL, English Speakers of Other Languages. Each year, students have to take what's called the access test, students that have ESL services. And this year, it has been quite a process to get the tests ordered because the company, DRC, that was supposed to be involved with this, or that was involved with this, was behind. There was a lot of trouble communicating with the state, but Daniel Cook and Stephanie Smith, who are teachers, kept on it, and we got the tests, and the window is open, and it closes actually on March 1st. So this was the first year that there was supposed to be an online assessment, but because of the late notice and problems with getting the tests, we opted to go with the paper version for 1 more year to make sure everybody had access to that. So, and I actually have spoken to Danielle and Stephanie about preparing a presentation or informational brochure for our next meeting. So, and then in terms of court-involved students and families, just some statistics. Students who are involved with the courts for under abuse and neglect, we have 23. And then students who have been adjudicated and are on juvenile probation, we have 3. And then students that are either placed by the courts in foster homes or residential placements, we have 5. And I would just note that for abuse and neglect, any students that, or any children that are birth to 21, schools get joined as a party to the case, even though we're not responsible for providing services until age 3. Questions?
No report from personnel. Any
Report from personnel.
Yes, briefly, we had a great facilities meeting last week. Alan Smith gave a very detailed update on everything. And I would just say that we're going to reach out to Parks and Recreation again. Greg and I went to that meeting in November. We're going to go to their meeting this coming Thursday, see if we might see if there's any interest in them using the academy space, which they're using in the summer for some, other longer-term needs. I know that their building has been, they can't have students in it anymore. So we'd like to try to explore that with them a little bit further. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
No, no,
Just that
other
we're
than,
going to go to that. Yeah, so, and I don't have anything else, but do you have anything else you want to mention, Greg?
no, other than Al kind of gave us an update on the gym floor and the planned replacement of the gym floor from the damage, the water damage that happened this winter. And then just kind of went over some of the changes in location for some of the events that were previously scheduled in the gym that are being moved to the Hopper building now.
Right.
So that was really the other big update that we had from Al for facilities.
Activities that we have been involved in. First of all, you heard a little bit from the principals about embedded professional development, where we're sending a number of our teachers out. They'll be going to courses and workshops coming back and working with their peers, particularly around technology. And this is following a model that has received research validation, that professional development, where it's embedded in the professional practice, produces more effective results. The administrative team and the instructional coaches met in the first of 2 half-day sessions to work on outlining a series of activities and workshops lasting into the next academic year on competency-based instruction, assessment, and reporting. This is in alignment with the state initiative to provide and measure student learning in terms of the competencies that students acquire. How do we instruct? How do we assess? Often we use authentic assessments or performance assessments. But more importantly, how do we report them out? And how do we do that in terms of the traditional grading system that parents and students and many teachers are used to using? So we are working on that, and we have another session scheduled for this coming Tuesday, and our goal there is to have a professional development plan for some of the rest of this year, but for the next academic year. We are sending 12 participants to a workshop, or a day-long workshop, sponsored by New Hampshire Association for Supervision Curriculum Development, with a nationally recognized authority on performance-based and competency-based instruction, reporting, and grading. And we expect to take that information and use it to guide the work that we will be doing with teachers. The speaker's name is Tom Gusky. We have ordered books for book study prior to the folks going down to, where is it, in Concord? That is quite up here. So that's professional development. I'm very encouraged because we are doing this in a K-12 platform. So this is representatives from all of our levels. I have met with the LTA, that's the Teachers Association Executive Board, to review supervision evaluation, and we are going to be doing a work session on bringing the reporting forms in line with the changes that we made to the supervision evaluation protocol. And this will be collaborative. I'm asking them to agree for administrative representatives to come, because we really have to go at this in a spirit of mutuality. It has to work for the teachers, has to work for administration, in order to really, not get caught up in the paper push, but make it work. I have been involved in a couple of student issues that have arisen. I met with some parents who were concerned about their child in school, and I have been called in by the principals to be apprised of student issues that happen from time to time. But I'm pleased to say that I think we have a pretty good handle on the issues as they've been brought to me. I do want to let you know that Chief Smith and the New Hampshire State Police will be conducting training exercises during February vacation in the high school. And finally,
Training exercises for what?
for event planning. you know, the drills that they do when they go into schools.
They have to cover when we have a big event.
Yeah, and not just, I mean, they do a generic planning, they're going to, training. They do a generic training, they're using our site to do that generic
Okay,
training.
all right.
It includes a classroom information and then active training. And then finally, Chief Smith and I discussed bringing a proposal to you in March for your consideration for endorsing Alice training. He spoke about it before. Okay. So those are the things that are in progress.
In March, he wants to do that?
In March, we want to bring it to the board.
To endorse it?
To
Or
approve
get,
it.
To get, well, we had talked about having some kind of, to be able to invite parents and other members of the community to talk about it and understand what it entails before the board would go ahead and make any movement on it. So March seems a little early because we haven't really talked about what kinds of initiatives those are going to be.
Then I'll work with Chief Smith to put together a plan that includes the parents and community.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's important that everyone's informed
Yep.
about what's going on. I like the idea, but I like the idea, I will like it more if everyone else knows about it.
Yeah.
And the different age groups and what that looks like in our different buildings.
I will do that. I will talk with
Yeah.
Chief Smith.
Okay. Anything else to come before this public meeting? If not, I'll entertain a motion to go into non-public.
Make a motion to enter into non-public session under paragraph 2, section 3 of the RSA 91A:3 of the right to know law for numbers 2, the hiring of any person as a public employee, and number 3, matters that would adversely affect the reputation of any person other than a member of the board.
Okay.
Taking with us
The superintendent.
the superintendent.
Mr. Smith,
Mr. Smith or the assistant superintendent,
Mrs. Nolan,
Mrs. Nolan,
Mr. Doucette,
Mr. Doucette,
Mr. Eastman,
Mr. Eastman.
and nobody else is here that I know.
Nope.
Thank you. You'll hear a second.
Second,
Roll call vote.
Cook.
Robbins,
Wiggett.
Estone?
Nelson?
Okay.